Yeah, I just want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Before we start.
All right. I just hit record. What I wanted to do, too, as I'm setting this all up.
And just to figure out the thing that makes the most sense. Are we going to feed each other? Are we going to back channel as interpreters? Or are we going to remain in character?
I think that did you watch the video yet?
Not all the way through. I watched some of it.
I think if you're going to back channel, you have to wait and, make sure it fits in. Because there was a few times where you back channeled and it wasn't, I wasn't there in the story yet. You know what I mean? So...
Meaning I back channeled as...
I didn't say the joke
as
yet.
Sadie?
Yeah. And then you would...
Interesting.
You would do the laugh or something. And then sometimes I thought the back channeling was a bit distracting. If you could have just been try not to back channel with your hands if you don't have to. Make that, the last resort. And then if you are, wait for a pause. Wait for the spot. Because I just feel like even just watching it. And then also we were feeling, pressure to end for the other person. And I know for me, when I see you, ready to go, it adds some pressure for me.
It adds pressure. That makes sense. So, just to clarify, sorry, are we back channeling as interpreters or as...
I think we could do both. I think we can be, the character, and then I think we can be... Or you know what I mean? I think we can...
Whatever's natural in the moment. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I also need to mess with my lighting before we actually go for it.
I wrote some for the next deliver practice session. I wrote those first few minutes were really hard for me to get into a groove, and watching it back was rough. And I don't know. I think we know better, but I think we were stuck on let's get it all in. And sure.
I
have not taken the origami test yet.
The origami.
I don't know what it's called. I'll take it. And then that too. I think a lot of my struggle was understanding the Gestalt, and I was composing as I was planning. There was no rehearsal. There wasn't a full Gestalt, a full comprehension in my head. I also feel as soon as you watch that video, you can see our normal energy is pretty low. Especially for who we are, it's really low. We were kind of not in it. I feel bad. So that's why I want to get to it again as soon as possible. So thank you, because I'm excited. We had so many positive comments about making it accessible, and I know it wasn't, as soon as we were done, I knew it wasn't my best. And so I want to come back and try again. So be more committed. Well, I'm going to, this time, make sure I have a clear R, at least. I don't think I had clear R's, and I was rushing myself.
Interesting.
I think, do we approach this as a play or approach it as an interpretation? There's got to be, a different combination where we're kind of doing both.
Yeah, well, now that we've kind of talked about it, we can just see what happens today. I think if we say, we're doing it this way, and then something comes up where it's
you're garbage.
If we say, we're doing a play, and then I want to back channel to you as the interpreter or something, for example, that's kind of outside of that realm, and then I have this internal, I'm sorry.
You're sad.
I know, this place is lousy.
Stop.
It's not lousy, it's really expensive, but it's going on me. So if something comes up that makes me want to step outside of that realm, I think it's going to throw me because I'm going to have this internal moment,
Well,
so we can just kind of play it by ear.
Yeah, I'm going to get my notes out. And then, okay, who's our audience this time? We need
Let's talk about that.
We need a clear, I don't want to make you my audience because I want to break out of interpreting for my team. So who's our audience? Do you have anybody clear in mind?
Well, who would normally listen to this podcast?
Well, great. I think everybody should listen to this podcast. I think it has a lot of important information in there, and I think it's an important thing. And so I'm trying to think who. I'm just gonna keep in mind without saying names.
I was just gonna say that.
that last person who messaged us and said, like, thank you, that's awesome, I'm going to put that person in my mind, a female from North Jersey. So that's going to be my audience.
I have someone else in mind as well that I know and I think was the kind of person that would listen to this sort of thing.
Okay. All right, great. So yeah, what's our target register? Because it's not, I mean, it's kind of formal because there's like no interruptions. I feel like they've planned this. It's kind of rehearsed.
I feel like it's not formal just because formal. Interesting. I see what you're saying now. Because it's not like with each other. They're familiar with each other, but they're not necessarily with the audience.
Right.
So.
I mean, even for us, it should lean more towards formal, like.
Yes.
A formal register. And they use big words, which in my twisted brain is formal. I know there's no like scale, but in there, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. All right, I'm ready when you are.
Welcome to Satisfaction Factor.
Recording stopped.
I need to turn this fan on before we. Could you see me melting and dying?
No. I did see you put your ASL champ hat on. Gosh.
Oh, really? Oh, we have so much to talk about. Okay, great.
Ooh. Girl.
Tell me.
You swung the pendulum, man.
It was different. It was definitely different.
For you.
I felt when I started, I felt rushed. And I felt focused on the end times. When I hit the fish story, I made a couple mistakes, but I was like, but you know what? It went well because I had an R. And I'm like, right, that was my goal.
I saw the R.
So I was like, I feel rushed. I wrote like, I feel rushed, not clear, and then like an arrow to not clear, an arrow to rush, an arrow not clear, right? Because I know that they're like symbiotic now. So I wrote myself a little note that says, don't rush, expand, because that's who my mental audience want, you know. Get an R, and don't forget, you could pause it. And so once I reminded myself that I was feeling rushed and that I could pause it, it really like, I think it shifted my headspace, right?
Yeah, interesting.
I feel like part of the reasons why I wanted to do a podcast as deliberate practice was, of course, to make it accessible, to share my friends' work, because I liked a lot of the ideas and concepts of intuitive eating, but also because I haven't had a lot of like long-houred interpreting assignments. You know, I went from 2, 3, 4 hour engagements to like a 15-minute, 5-minute, 15 minutes, right? And so I was like, we need to make cues for like when we're halfway and a quarter away, because I feel like I start dying, and I feel like I want to tell you.
I felt the same. I felt myself losing it. I'm not gonna lie. But that's something we can talk about in a bit. I want to hear more about you.
So what else? I wrote down for myself. Need a cue. I was confusing some of my setups. I was confusing myself, like, because the conversation would kind of change, and then I was like, right, because I didn't have the gestalt yet, and so there we go.
I think that happened to me as well. Or like I predicted wrong. I was like, oh, I thought we were going to be, I mean, I was consistent with diet culture over here, but then I think sometimes I thought that we were going to be talking about something that was going to be compared to diet culture, so I set it up all the way over here, but then I realized, like, oh gosh, we're going to be comparing this to something else, so then I would, like, needed to set something up over here, but then I was like, I need to make sure not to set it up over. It was, I didn't give myself enough time to pee, I guess. Didn't pee well enough.
Same thing, not peeing well enough. And reminder to you, when we do this the next time, we can make a cue to pause it.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting. That thought did not even enter my mind.
I mean, we have complete control. I thought it was going great because I thought it was going better, not great, better because it was slower. And
it was a bit of a slower pace.
My brain was like, don't my students tend to like slow down? Like we don't utilize enough of our...
Oh, we don't take our own advice.
Right.
Yeah.
I was getting disappointed in myself because as we were going, I started to get an R, and I started to, first of all, with this and that, they like warned us. There's no binary thinking. It's never going to be this or this. It's going to be this and this. And so I'm like, why am I then, like getting trapped in the if-then conditional statements?
Right.
When I've been warned by the text that there's going to be other options. And so
that's funny.
So maybe I need to go higher so I can go lower or something.
Yeah, see, that's the trap of setting things up and then realizing,
now what?
Yeah. I painted myself into a corner.
I felt like I was finally getting to a place where, like, I was playing with hand shapes, which is, like, who I used to be. Like, and then I would mess them up, and then I would get mad at myself. Or, like, I would forget silly things like, what's the sign for mosquito? And then have, like, a complete breakdown. So that's why I feel like...
eventually.
That's why I feel like it wasn't...
I did that, too.
So great.
Times. It was like, why did my hands just do that? That's not the sign. And then, I don't know, I feel like it started, like, this internal, like, spiral sometimes.
I still am finishing that feeling disappointed. Not as disappointed, but disappointed. But a little bit, not as, because I feel appreciative, because clearly I need to get back to... Because it's not like...
I'm nodding for myself. Not for you.
Like, it was all, I noted that it was different this time because I also knew that students weren't going to come in, and I wanted to set a good example for students, right? Like, that wasn't where my headspace was this time. This was for me. And so having it be for me, there's no, like, ideal, perfect, right? Like, I just want to be myself again. I feel like I've lost a lot of that because of COVID, right? Like, a lot of things went online. I did a lot of video interpreting opposed to, like, in-person interpreting. The length of assignments, the types of assignments have changed for me. And so I don't, so I feel disconnected, right? And, like, moving to Georgia, the language is a little bit different here. And so, yeah, it was, like, exciting to get, like, a little bit of a taste of, like, how I used to interpret. And then, like, super disappointing when I messed it up. Like, turning goal into privilege was, like, perfect. It was there. How did I mess it up?
No, I don't... interesting. I don't like that you're saying the words mess it up. Well, because it makes it seem like there's a right way to do it.
Well, it's like I stuttered. And I guess you can't get mad at yourself if you stutter. Because essentially that's what I did. I stuttered. So you're right. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm having a bit of an existential crisis over here. So this is... Wow, this is going to not put me in a very good light right now. I'm going to sound very, like... But I am walking away from this feeling worse than the first time.
Oh, no.
And I think that... No, it's okay. I mean, I'm learning. So I think that the first time we kind of didn't go in with very many expectations, and that all tied into, like, probably not prepping as much as we should and things like that, right? So I think that this time we had more clear expectations for, like, we're going to be present, you had goals for yourself, I had goals for myself, and when you have a goal and you feel like you didn't meet that feels worse than if you go in with, let's see what happens, So this is where I'm finding out something uncomfortable about myself. So, this is going to sound so conceited, but I'm going to say it.
Please.
I think I've gotten used to being the better interpreter in the team. Like, I'm used to working with people who rely on me or who I'm constantly watching them going like, and now working with you, and your level of skill and your use of the language and your process, I have met my match. Isn't that really sad that I'm thinking that? Like, it's not even like I went into this like, it's so funny, like it's a competition, like they were talking
like
about in the,
but I mean,
oh my gosh,
we're gonna have to
like
earmark that for later in the interpreting industry, but go ahead.
Oh my goodness, so much. That could be its own podcast, its own show, let alone its own episode, you know. But I think that, sorry, my hair is like falling out. I think that just being in the presence of greatness made me be, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it made me be like, wow, I got a lot of work to do. And then I should not have been thinking that as I'm interpreting, but this is the voice in my head being like, whoa, girl, step it up. Look what is being put out over there, and this is what you're putting out, and you need to up it. And I think that was and don't feel like you're the problem because I'm the problem. You know, like and not that I'm the problem even in that I'm a lousy interpreter. The fact that I allowed these dialogues to take up space in my head when I should have been reserving that space for processing the message was something that I need to not let that happen, you know? But it happened, and I'm putting it out there.
I'm so glad you put it out there. I feel many things. I feel like it's so interesting because, I didn't know you were going to say that, and I went first, and I was like, oh, I'm disappointed in what I did, and then to get met with like, it's very interesting, and I feel like, I appreciate it because I, again, feel like I wasn't clear a lot of the times. I feel like I was not at all consciously aware of the fact that I had fingers. And I'd realized that halfway through.
How does that manifest? What
no,
does
because
that feel like?
like a lot of my interpreting performance is based off of dancing. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that I was like, oh, I am not focused on I don't even know that I have fingers right now. Like, it was so hot in the room, and you're
not aware of your physiological physicality. I understand that.
And so, I thought your signs were so clear and so sharp, and I was like, I am not doing that at all.
Right now, I have to tell you, I need to go empty the dehumidifier. I'm sticking to myself in places I don't want to talk about. I feel so gross right now. That's so interesting because I felt like, okay, sorry, no, you keep talking. If you had more that you wanted to say. I tried to start writing things down, but then I realized that I couldn't multitask, and I really wanted to watch you interpret so that I could feed off of, if you made any sign choices or, if you set things up, I wanted to make sure that I was watching you, and I could not write things. I wrote down the beginning of one word, and I was like, yep, that's not happening. I was, panicking. I was like, it's going to be my turn, and I'm going to have no idea what they're talking about. And so I don't know how you did that, first of all. I feel like... I don't know what I feel like. I really need to unpack. I think I felt defeated in the moment a lot, which played into it just spiraled, right? It feeds on itself and feeds on itself. And then I felt like I just didn't have a process. I would get a little R, and it'd be and then I would just be relying on the fact that I have 10 years of experience as an interpreter, and I can kind of just do it without, how do I say, it's a lot of muscle memory sometimes. Yeah. You can rely on muscle memory and not do a stellar job, but you're getting by. Mm-hmm. And I think that was happening a lot because I was just so consumed with being distracted by the things that I was thinking that I would kind of I don't know, that exploded moment, in movies when things go slow, The Matrix, when things go slow. And it's things are happening out here, but I am doing like a million things in here, and then I come back into the room and I'm like, what did I miss? You know, like, did I blipped out for a second there. Did I miss something? And then, but I didn't miss enough that I would have to be like, where are we? You know, I could kind of piece it together, but I wasn't focused on the task for a lot of it. And, or maybe I was too focused on the task in that, instead of letting it happen, you know, letting the R happen, or just seeing the pictures and then interpreting the pictures, I was thinking, oh geez, where do I set that up? Like, okay, so, well, okay, well, she set that up over there, so I have to make sure to be consistent, set that up over there, and then, okay, and then, oh shoot, I spelled that wrong. All these things, like, I need to explore more why this was happening.
My son is passing me a box of pretzels as you were talking. I'm so sorry.
Hey, can I join you?
I will make them for you. Can you give me a few more minutes?
Oh, they're not for you?
Love you. All right. Can you just shut their freezer? I'll be right out. Thank you.
They're not for you?
They're not for me.
I was going to join you.
No, they're for him. No, yeah.
Does any of that make sense?
It totally makes sense because I'm thinking about how I used to think like the ultimate compliment was like when somebody noticed that I would be interpreting a conversation between two people and mouthing along to like the song on the radio. Right? Like,
interesting.
But
that's interesting.
Or like being able to like totally disengage and take notes and then come right back in, right?
Superpower, not gonna lie.
It's not. It's like switching into autopilot and letting autopilot take over, and then I can do the other things, you know? Which I feel like becomes an issue because I'm not like fully present. I'm not, and then it turns into this like, unless it's like a high stakes, high rewards interpreting assignment, do I not
like dialed in?
Right, and so like why do I get to decide that? Why do I get to decide this is more high stakes and this is more high rewards? So you get my full attention, and this, you know what I mean? Like you get my autopilot. It's like,
yeah,
but right, like that's what is happening. I feel like for me,
and I wonder why it's happening for both of us. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be so easy to blame like fatigue. Like I haven't like worked so long, which is on like one same topic without like a break. You know, it's bizarre, but like to have to keep my mind going. I guess it's easy for me to just like detach and disengage and take a little micro break and then come back and then be lost and then have to scramble even harder and work even harder. But I like working under stress, so make it worse.
Were you experiencing that this time? It was interesting because as an outside observer, I wouldn't have guessed that so much.
Last time, total 100% autopilot mode, for sure. And I think you can. If you've never met me and you see my energy in that one and you see my energy in this one, you can see, like, even from the start.
The moment you put your hands up today, I was like, oh, she's bringing it.
I was more, I was not rushing myself. That was the biggest difference. Like, my C was stronger. I wasn't really, like, in my, and when we say that CRP is from Betty Clonomus Foundations, visit bmc.com. We'll have a link for you if you don't know what we're talking about. So BMC. What did I say?
I don't know.
Okay. But, and then there were okay, so here we go. So at some points, like, all right, so I read Intuitive Eating. I've taken coaching sessions, group coaching sessions with Naomi from the podcast. And I'm essentially bringing it to you. And we've talked about it for the past 4 or 5 years. Like, so it's not like out of nowhere you're getting exposed to all this. But for some reason, I feel mildly responsible for the content because I also, like, as just somebody who, like, has learned about this, there's times where I want to be like, see, we need to talk about this. We need to dive into this. And then there were moments, like, when they were talking anti-capitalism, I was like, oh, shoot. You and I just had a conversation where we're like, we're not anti-capitalism. There's a lot of good things to say about capitalism. Like, we're happy that we live in America.
I was thinking that too.
And I was starting to get I wrote it down because I was starting to get triggered about that because I wanted to caretake for you. And so
that's interesting.
That
came up, and I was game face on because I wanted to raise I wanted to be here we go again. But just to clarify, I don't believe that capitalism is the end all be all, but I do enjoy being in a free economy in America. But
see, and this is where I wanted to stop and be I don't think they mean that kind of capitalism. I think they mean the kind of capitalism that profits off of it's a different
systemic oppression.
Right.
All of this, right.
So now I feel better that I caretaked.
I appreciate that. No, because
but that's my understanding anyway.
Yeah, I kind of I heard that, and honestly, I disengaged a little bit, and I was I was with you, but I kind of care a little bit less right now, which is ridiculous because again, I'm having this internal dialogue or monologue, whatever, depending, where it's why. Of course, we're allowed to have our own thoughts while we're interpreting, but why is this? Why am I allowing this to take over my brain right now?
Yeah.
I just let it happen.
Well, I know, but I think that just happens as people engaging in the situation, and then of course recognizing it, and then not letting it influence our bias, our recognizing our filters, and then not letting it influence the product, which I think we were successful in. I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Anybody relying on the caption, if you see some random words popping in there bad guy, it's probably picking up the audio of my kids in the next room. My apologies. I feel there is a democracy, and there is capitalism, and that is what our country is, and that's what our country fights for, and we don't want monopolies, and we want freedom of enterprises. You, me, the people in the podcast, we all have our own businesses. And you couldn't have that in a country that wasn't a capitalistic country. So I don't think it has anything to do with the patriotic view of capitalism, whereas there is also a system of oppression that is also labeled capitalism, and that represents that big fat Uncle Sam. You know what I mean? Yeah. That sometimes you see. Yeah. So I think it's two different things, and I can see that view of capitalism as well. I've experienced it, we all do. And so sometimes I guess if you recognize that, and you can bring it back to what it should be.
Right. It's used as an umbrella term when maybe it should be different.
Something different.
For sure.
Social determinants of health. I was why am I not prepared for that? And I wanted to pause it and chat with you for a little bit,
Well, then, see, you made the decision to fingerspell it, and I was yeah, social determinants of health, those are very important terminologies that come up in the world. And then I felt pressured to fingerspell it going forward, and it's interesting because, and I'm not saying that,
I thought I couched it.
You did, but see, here's where the thing is. The way you interpreted social determinants of health, even social determinants of health, the sign social, is not the decision I would have made, and I think that, caught me up a little bit. So, and then I was, I was stuck in the words, I was second guessing, I was determinants,
didn't I do measure or measures? I thought I did measure.
You did, but then you went to this, and then I was freaking obsessed with the word and freaking out about what is the most how can I give this concept while still having it relate to the lexical item, Yeah. And I think I just had a breakdown in that moment. Several times.
I remember being excited to have the ELK, the extra linguistic knowledge. For that, I was excited about it, and then I also was don't let that trip up your interpretation, because now we're putting out a new word. and a new concept and a new whole like subtext. So, so I felt that pressure, and then I must have slipped into autopilot, laughing in my head, thinking about our recent experiences with social determinants of health and why I wasn't better prepared to present this stuff. And so that's probably what you were seeing was
we
like...
We were just not prepared today. What was with that? And we worked so hard to be so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we even read the show notes. We read the show notes.
But then I wrote down, okay, so then I wrote down the social determinants of health and, like, why wasn't I better prepared for that and stuff. And then I'm like, but seriously, like, now I start, like, because we know these things. You and I have been working somewhere that is, like, all in on this social determinants of health, right?
I know,
like,
right?
And I have never, over the past few months that we've been engaged in that, right, like...
It's never been an issue. Like,
no. I'm talking about, like, body autonomy and, like, the like intuitive eating. Like, I've never. I'm still stuck in this, like, personal responsibility for my own health, even though we have been in the swamp of social determinants
we've been
land.
Discussing this,
right? Like, it's still something different for me, and that was the whole point of that, right? That it's not really different, and that, like.
Right, like, it's never before. It's always just been like, oh, yeah, that. And now all of a sudden we get here and it's like...
no, we're having two different conversations.
Are we? Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
okay, let's bring it up. Sorry,
so I was talking about that, and then I went into another part where I'm saying, like, holy moly, right. Like, me as a human being who has been in the arena of talking about and learning about social determinants of health, never applied it to myself.
Oh, you were getting, like, super personal.
I was getting very, like, in my own, like, how
I misunderstood that.
How I do it. No.
Interesting.
So there was a lot happening in that moment.
Whoa, that's, like, there's a lot there.
And then I wrote it all down, so how I did all that. Your sign for yoga, I'd never saw it before, and then I was like, that makes sense, but does it work on its own? I don't know. I think you need yoga, and then I
think I spelled it right.
Yeah. But then I tried to do it without it, because
I've seen yoga too, but I feel like that can get confused with meditation.
Right.
So
throughout it, I was excited, and then right now I was like, no, I still need something else.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I thought there was, like, a sign for yoga, and I was really excited. And that sign makes sense, but it's not like the sign. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah, I always spell it and then I couch it.
I have meltdown and bugs, right? I no P with that.
I was wondering if you had an R for that.
I had an R for that. A total R for that.
I thought that I was wondering if you didn't have an R at the beginning and then you quickly got an R.
No, the whole time I had an R for that for some reason. I was in the basement. I saw that spider. Okay. You didn't see.
I had a great R for your parts.
You know what? And I also started thinking. I think that first podcast that they did, which was very different from the rest, from the second one. I'm assuming the rest are going to be more like the second one. There weren't, like, anecdotal comments.
I was thinking that. There were, like, very few stories. And if they were very, like, yeah, I had coffee with a fitness trainer and they had never heard of intuitive eating. Next.
Yeah. I liked this one better. Are you agreeing with me that there were more, for me anyway, I felt like I had more options for R's because there was, like, more.
It was less personal.
It was more personal.
What do you mean?
I feel like the first one was very, like, superficial and, like, let's get to know me, let's get to know you, this is who I am, this is what I do, thank you and good night. Whereas this one, it was like, I had this experience where in my basement, so I was able to come up with an R. Even the story of a fish, like, it was very visual in its own nature where, like, it was easier for me to come up with an R, you know? I just thought...
Yeah. I think I'm being clouded by all of the other things that were happening in my head, and I feel worse about this one than I did about the first one. But I also think that connected really strongly with a lot of more of the stories in the first one, so maybe that's why I'm feeling that way. Like, having an eating disorder in high school. And,
you were ours.
You know,
right, never mind.
You know, like,
yeah.
I've worked at schools for, like, most of my career, so, like, I literally saw the cafeteria where I used to work and things like that. I think I had more R's for the first one.
No, you're right.
I have never I've never joined a gym in my life. I've never really interacted with people in fitness culture in person, you know? Mm-hmm. So I have friends that, like, kind of subscribe to it, but, like, the extent of my experience with that is, like, seeing their posts on Facebook, like, Team No Days Off and things like that. So, like, I'm not really in that so much. So I felt way more confident in the first podcast.
That makes total sense. And I think that we should totally switch then. Because they've already told us in the first podcast that Naomi was right. So whereas I live with a fitness person. I've done fitness most.
You have a gym in your basement.
Not anymore. Now it's playroom. But I'm more experienced in that realm.
And I've never been that guy.
We should switch. Let's switch.
Okay. We can switch. And maybe that'll be the magic formula.
Yes, maybe. I mean, I hate to, like, cower down from a challenge, but it's okay. And I kept feeling...
it's not cowering down if it's going to provide better access.
Right. I also feel like I was doing... and I wrote this down. I felt like I was doing really good, and then, like, a quote would come out, and I'd be like, come on, girl. Like, you know...
Those are the worst.
Those were getting, like... It was... I mean, it's... Yeah, it was getting, like... I'm like... Okay, I didn't handle that one well, I thought. So,
you know what? Quotes and book titles are just the death of me. Book titles and quotes, and I mean, we talked about that a little bit with the last podcast, where it'd be like, title 14 words long, and you're like, oh, why did I spell this? Yeah. I was trying to do the right thing.
At least I had some sort of a elk for it, whereas this time I didn't. But I didn't know I know the fish analogy, and then once I realized that's where we were going, I was like, oh, pressure on! I want to make this clear. Interesting. I don't know if it was clear.
So do you think that didn't actually serve you? It was, like, actually a hindrance?
Well, right after that is when I wrote "still feeling rushed, not clear" with an arrow. That's still feeling rushed, not clear.
Oh, I wanted to mention this. That's funny. I noticed you waiting. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. I noticed you did not give in to the pressure. You waited. And I thought that was really interesting because for some reason I was feeling pressure. And I did not wait when I should have waited several times. And I actually appreciated when there were times when you really bled. When your interpretation bled into my source text. Because I was like, oh, thank God. I'm processing. You're giving me time to process what's being spoken right now. And it's like, I didn't give myself that permission. I only took advantage of it when you provided me that opportunity. And I don't know why that happened.
Interesting.
Because, like, I was sitting there and I was like, wait. I just have Hamilton in my head. I'm thinking, wait for it. And then my hands go up, and I'm like, the heck is going... Like, I don't know why. it kept happening. And the interpretation suffered, for sure. I had just waited.
Where or why did you feel it suffered?
I think that I didn't know where they were going. I didn't know where they were arriving to. I was on the train with them. I didn't know what the destination was.
Yes. And
I think that also, like, hurt the logistics of interpreting too. Like, I think we can talk about not having an R and then kind of going, you know, I feel like a lot of people fall back on just going linear, following English syntax or whatever. But I think that it hurts the logistics of where you set things up. Because if you have a good idea, like, okay, obviously, two fish are going this way, I'm going to set the grandfather fish coming up this way, or whatever. It's like, I can make good choices that set me up for success in my space if I know where we're going. But if I don't know where we're going, I could paint myself into a corner.
Mm.
You know?
Yes. It was gratefully that moment, and I felt like I lost that story, and I was disappointed because I know that story. A file for it. I had a schema for it, but I was glad that happened because then I was able to be like, why am I not producing this in the way I can? And it was like, oh, because I feel rushed, and because I feel rushed, I'm not clear. Because I always feel like if I take a shortcut, it's not clear. And then that's when right after that, I was like, okay, so what am I going to do now moving forward? I'm not going to rush. I'm going to expand. I'm going to build an R, and I can pause it. And that
sitting
was
there writing an action plan while processing. Who are you?
But I needed that. I needed to like stop and check in with myself and be like, girl, pause it if you feel like it's getting away from you.
Why were we both feeling rushed?
Both times. I think I stopped.
What is with that?
I think I stopped feeling rushed.
I wonder if now I'm just having this thought. I never interpret recordings anymore. Oh. Never. Even most of my interpretation is between two people or parties that are talking to each other in real time. But the thing is, it's weird because I interpret presentations all the time, which might as well be a recording because you can't. Right. So why?
I mean, we know that we could stop a presentation really if we had to, and usually we don't. And I feel like I knew I could pause. I'd given myself permission to pause this if I needed it. And then after that, I didn't have to. I was able to, like, slow down, process. And then there were times where, like, I stopped and the speaker was still talking. And I was like, oh, they're just reiterating what I just said. And I liked what I just said. Right? So
I'm sorry.
No, please.
I just thought of, like, two things.
Okay.
So I think that... my job is begging me to pick up more hours. I'm ignoring them. So the first thing is, I think that what played into me feeling rushed was the fact that maybe I did have more of this mentality of like, I'm interpreting theater. And so I need to embody this. And if I break character by being like, I didn't understand that. I'm going to put my hands down till I get it, which is what I tell everyone that I ever mentor or encounter. Like, stop signing. Put your freaking hands down. And I didn't take my own advice because I was like, no, this is a performance. You know, like, this person didn't stop, therefore I do not have permission to stop. If I was interpreting in any other situation, when I don't understand something, what do? I stop until I get it, and then I pick it up again, and then it's way better for me and everyone. So I think that was the first factor that played into it. And the second factor that played into it is I think I kind of felt like an island a little bit, which is kind of funny because we talked beforehand, like, are we allowed to team? Are we teaming with each other right now? Is this a performance? And I think because, and I'm not blaming us, but I think that just I'm not used to, whenever I'm interpreting something where it is like a presentation, right, where one person, quote, can't be stopped, which is the same concept as a recording, right, for all intents and purposes. I usually have a team with me, and the team will feed me stuff so it can be seamless, so I don't have to put my hands down. And I felt like I didn't have that here. So I was like, I'm on my own. I got to save face. We got to keep this train chugging, and it has to look good. And I can't put my hands down, and I am my own resource, and that's it. Like, I think that's what was happening in my head.
Well, I'm sorry about that. And
it's not your fault.
Well, I'm taking accountability for it because I'm wondering if my note-taking and when I look away is making you feel isolated.
I'm not going to lie. Maybe. Yeah. And I don't know if it would be better if we were like eyeballs. I think that would still be a lot of pressure for me. So I don't know what the answer is. I think that occasionally, because I was already feeling not great and doing, I was like, wow, this plane's crashing and burning. And it's so funny because I would see you take notes, And it's like, I know your notes are about you. Your notes are always about you. But something would be like, yep, she caught that. Like, you suck. She's writing down that you suck right now. But it's like, I know that you're not like that. So I don't know why that was coming up for me. And it's all of my own garbage and my baggage. It has nothing to do. You could have been anybody. And that would have happened, It has nothing to do with your personality. If anything, your personality is the opposite of that. So I don't know. It's all of my garbage that's happening right now. But I'm glad we're having this conversation because I think I'm too used to not being challenged and not having these experiences. And as I said, walking away like, which is not great because you can't grow if you think you're amazing every time,
right. Well, no, I appreciate that because I feel the only thing I wrote down about you was yoga and capitalism, and it was just those words. But I take a lot of notes because I fall into autopilot. I get disengaged, and I need to. So it's for me to stay engaged and on task. But I will try.
No, please don't. Well, please don't. Don't change yourself because of me.
Well, what about in other dynamics too? I'm sure that other people don't process the same way I do, and so they might also be owning it and taking. You know what I mean? And it might be creating a weird team dynamic. So I'm gonna try.
But I think that I don't know. I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, but I feel like when I've seen you work with new people or even observe students, you're always like, ignore me. I take notes. It's nothing about you. I always take notes. It's just my thing. So I know that about you, and I feel like you do a good job establishing that at the beginning of jobs.
Okay.
So I don't think that I mean, on the surface shouldn't affect because you put that out there. You put that disclaimer out there at the beginning. You're really good about that.
So then why is it so, but you know what I mean? Like, so you're still like upset. You know what I mean? Those committees are still going.
But I don't think it has anything to do with you.
I'm not. I'm taking.
You were the. It would have happened to me anyway. You just happened to be the person that was sitting next to me when it happened.
I am hearing what you're saying, and I'm also being selfish about what you're saying. And like, okay, so what was wrong with the team dynamic? Because I felt supported by you. I felt like there were times when I was like, was that? Okay, good. And I got it from you. Mm. And then I feel like bad because when it was your turn, I feel like, okay, I'm going to confess here. And I when it was your turn, I checked out. I took a break.
I feel like that was like almost good for me though, because I feel like that took the pressure off of me. I don't know. Like,
and let's at some point in the very beginning, Chris was texting me and he was telling me he was leaving and he was leaving the kids, and I had to like attend to that and like change some of my setup here, And so I was like, I was gone. I was like listening for like vocal tones of dips, like when to come back in. But like, yeah. So I mean, you felt that way. But
I think that it's because I didn't allow myself to consider you as my team. We were standing up on stage next to each other, and you were Naomi and I was Sadie, and this was a performance, as we discussed. Right. We were not like this. We were like this, and therefore I could not rely on you as a team because I wouldn't let myself, because that was not the dynamic in my head.
Was it ego, which is like always my go-to answer, I know, but was it a little like I'm supposed to be on now, I'm supposed to be this person now, it's public, you can see both of the interpreters, so you know what I mean?
I'm sure. Everything, what is an ego?
Right.
For sure. Everything is ego. And it comes back to my ego of I'm used to not having to work too hard. And I'm used to... Oh, this sounds so bad. I'm used to being the more skilled, more experienced interpreter in the room. And it's different. It's different. Because when I do work with people who are more skilled, and yeah, it's the team thing. It's the team thing. The fact that I felt like I didn't have a team, or did not allow myself to feel like I have a team. Because there are times when I work with other people who are like way out of my league, and I just watch them, and I'm like, oh, well, thank God. I feel so good right now. I feel safe with this person because they know what they're doing. And if I need support, I know they're going to be able to support me. And I can support them because they are going to know what they need. Like, all this stuff. Like, I just feel like... And, like, I didn't feel that here because I didn't allow myself to see us as a team. I was like, wow, I gotta deliver now. Because she's delivering, and now I gotta deliver, and I'm on my own. And again, nothing to do with you. Everything to do with me.
No, I understand. And you don't have to worry about that. I'm thinking, though, like, is it still, like, this is a play?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I wonder if I can, like, switch that somehow in my mind, you know? For next time.
Yeah.
So much interesting information.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to go back and watch that one.
I know.
We're redoing it.
Maybe you want to redo that.
Not right now.
No. Let's not redo it. Let's keep it as is. It's like, because we in our prep we're like, you know what? Like, we're not always perfect. I'm grateful for these opportunities.
Sure.
And
proved it today.
Proved it today. And next time we have a plan moving forward. Like, you know, it is about, why are we doing this? We're doing this for our practice and our benefit, but we're also for access. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the best.
A good job.
A great job, yeah. And so maybe switching will benefit.
Maybe.
Now having this conversation where it's like, no, we are here together. It's a play, but we don't need to be regulated by the source content or format. Like, we could pause it. We could stop it.
And I feel like even in a play, I'm not regulated by the source. You know, like... Honestly, I wonder if switching will help too, because part of my underlying anxiety constantly is not knowing their voices yet and listening and being like, does she have an accent? Is that my person? And waiting, and then I hear a twang or I hear a word that's not how I would pronounce it and be like, oh, that's my person. I should have been on. I should have been listening. You know?
Yeah. I will say there was some points where Sadie was talking and I didn't understand her accent. But that's fine. It's because I have the way I have the audio coming in. It's so quiet, and I had my kids talking, and so it was like hard for me to hear in that accent. When she was like talking about online businesses, I was like, "What kind of businesses?" And then like I looked on the caption, and it had gone by already. And then I was like, oh, "Thank goodness I'm not on right now." So it's going to be still a fun challenge. So I don't want to.
It'll be fine. But maybe we can establish a different dynamic where, you know, we can feed each other. Like,
of course.
The goal is the message. Our loyalty is to the message, right?
I think, you know, maybe, and I hope, I mean, I try not to feed, but if I feel like we are way off track, I have no problems taking over.
It's open process, pretty much. I mean, it's hard to open process on Zoom, but as much as one can. And,
I mean, we never had that conversation. Shame on us.
Well, we kind of did. We did a little bit, like when I was talking about last episode with like Enneagram, like spelling it. Like, I should have just thrown up an E when you had never heard of that word before, you know? But I think that's all I have to say.
I think my kids are saying time's up. So
yeah, I gotta go take my kids to get ice cream.
I'm gonna make
ice cream. Oh my gosh, sorry. Just the cutest thing. I love those pretzels. I grew up eating those pretzels.
I gotta go make them.
Well, what is your New York sign for ice cream? What was it?
Ice cream?
No, you did like this hand shape.
Ice cream? Sugar?
No, you signed ice cream.
I might have made.
No, it's a New York sign.
Oh, it is? Okay.
I've seen other people sign. I think it's like ice cream.
Oh, you know what? Wait, just finish your thoughts.
No,
and I was like, wait a minute, I thought I didn't know the sign for it, right? And then, so this weird, like, forced retrieval sometimes doesn't...
forced retrieval.
Yeah, doesn't work for me.
Sure.
Well,
I forgot the sign for, like, actor today. And I said, like, movie star. And I was like,
ooh.
I would never, because they were talking about Jane Fonda and other famous actresses who are shaped like this. And I was like literally could not think of the sign for actor, which shows that I was processing on a lexical level.
Yeah.
Why was that?
What were like? Because I feel like when I said bee instead of mosquito, that was like muscle memory, and I caught myself. It wasn't lexical.
So the funny thing is, it came off my hands. I said, I can't remember what I actually produced. It came off my hands. I felt myself signing this, and then I was like thinking about that sign, and I was like, is that the sign for actor? Should I spell Jane Fonda? Movie star! So I don't know what was going on there, man.
That's funny you say that, because in that moment, it wasn't lexical for me, and so that's why I'm saying maybe it wasn't lexical for you.
You mean this wasn't lexical?
Either, right, because I felt my body just go to do B, and I was like, wait a minute, and then I was like, that's not right, and then I was like, whatever it is, so I had to like talk myself through the retrieval, right? So I was like, whatever the sign, whatever that word is, it's a word I learned later in life after having gone to school, because I grew up with bees and mosquitoes and ladybugs all just being bugs. They're just bugs. And then I grew up signing in my house, and in my house we signed bug that encompassed all of these little creatures. And so it's interesting. So then so that's why when you know what I'm saying? And then later I saw you sign bug, and I'm like, so why didn't I just do that? Because that is more clear to me. It makes more sense. Like, it didn't, there's bugs out there, and spiders eat all the bugs. And why would, so now, was it lexical?
I don't know.
Was I listening on a lexical level? Or, you know what I mean?
Maybe you were.
I feel like I had a good R, though.
Maybe it pulled you down, where you were like up here, and then you heard that word, and maybe you have some association with that word, and it pulled you down to the lexical level for that moment.
I don't know. I'm challenging that process because...
Interesting.
Because, right, I think in a normal moment, if you're having a conversation, you're like, and we went to that, what is that thing called? And the
bodega. Right,
or the corner store. Something like that, right? So when you're trying to look for that retrieval, you still, I guess because you still have the R, you still have you're just, you switch to lexical at that moment.
I feel like sometimes though, have you ever had a moment where you know that there's a word for something? Why this is happening? Do you know that experience when you know that there is a word in the universe for that thing that you're looking for? And it's you can't remember what the word is. And it's I could say writing utensil, but I can't remember the word pen. And pen is the word I want. And it's I don't want to say writing utensil because I want to say pen, but I can't think of the word pen. And so I go into a tailspin.
Yeah. Is that what happened with you in Movie Star?
So the interesting thing was my hand signed my hand signed this. And I had an out-of-body experience, almost I was reading the captions, and I was I saw myself produce it, and my brain went, was that the right sign? My hands knew it, but my brain didn't. My brain did not approve that sign before it came off my hands.
Right.
So
much with B. I could feel myself coming in for the smack, and I went,
yeah,
that's not mosquito.
Right. That's what happened. My hands made the decision to sign this, and that's why we're talking about autopilot and muscle memory and things like that. And my brain went, that is not approved. How did that get through the filter? Is that the right one? Or did we make a mistake here letting that come off our hands? And do we need to fix this now? How do we fix this? You should have signed famous person. Did you sign famous? Now you better sign famous, because I don't know if you signed famous yet. Okay, wait, did you remember to agent that, or did you just sign this? And are we talking about a podcast now, or are we talking about a show? You need to sign Movie Star to be safe. And that's everything that happened in my head at that time. Wow. Why it happened, I don't know.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I bet I didn't sign agent, actually. I bet I just signed this. And then I think that because we talked so much about how do we sign podcast, when we decided on this, I was like, shoot, does that look like I just signed podcast? You know? Which, it's funny because, it doesn't, that's a lexical item where, would you automatically equate this with podcasts?
No, and I think today...
So, like, why was I going there?
I even went to my own natural instincts and did a radio show. I stopped thinking about it so much. And so...
So interesting.
Yeah. So we're saying goodbye now, but I still feel like there's so much more. So I'll take notes when nobody's watching, and the next one we do, we'll start off with, in our prep, we'll just catch up a little bit about this. Before we go, did anything else you want to mention, like triggering about the text, like we talked about last time, like anything about the text that you wanted to just kind of...
I think I just want to learn more about intuitive eating now. Oh, I had a cat hair on my tongue. That was unpleasant. I think I want to learn more about not eating cat hairs, but intuitive eating. And the books that were being mentioned, like, I just want to read the intuitive eating book now. And I think that I had a moment of, like, longing when they were saying, what hit me really hard was when it was, like, talking about how, like, we are told to ignore our body cues and told that our bodies are wrong and we need to regulate them. Like, and if you can't regulate your body cues, you're weak. And it's so funny because, like, you've been telling me this for 2 years, but for some reason it, like, really hit me because I'm someone who for 2 years straight, as you know, I followed keto for 2 years, and it was like a religion, you know, like, well, it wasn't like a religion, but I followed it religiously, you know, and then now I still have guilt when I go to eat something and I don't look at the carbs on the back. I still have guilt, and it's like, well, you know what? Maybe I just want a Cheez-It that has 18 grams of carbohydrates because my body needs salt right now. But, like, 2 years ago, I would have been like, man, I really want to Cheez-It, and it would have been like, I'm going to go eat a piece of celery. You know?
Yeah.
So that really hit home for me and made me want to read the book. How about you?
I was feeling excited to go through this because I feel like when I had first gone through it and I read the book and I did the group sessions, I feel like it was really helpful in all aspects of my life, like they said, right? But the past year I started seeing a lot of it in the interpreting field. Like, I would have a male ASL professor come in and sign something and then thank them and say, like, you see the difference of how men can use space and how women can use space. And it was, for me, I don't know if it was landing the same way with the students, but, like, I wouldn't have ever arrived to these ideas and these concepts if I hadn't read these books and had these discussions. And it's interesting where society does tell you to shrink your voice, shrink your body size, shrink your opinions, shrink. And then we're trying to find comfort in standing large and tall in the front of a room and using up as much space as possible. And I think there's a correlation there between,
and interrupting men when we need to.
Right, interrupting men, interrupting people of authority and power, right? And so I was excited coming into this with the framework of interpreting. Does that make sense? Whereas,
totally, like, now that you're saying it,
I went through it, like, as myself, like, I needed this, and I feel like I was able to understand systems more and understand relationships more, and I think that, I hope that it has made me a better teacher and a better mentor, where I could look at the gestalt of a student, right? Like, how they're arriving to me.
And you're so good at that. Like, you've really taught me a lot about that, too.
Thank you for that. Well, I think this helped. And today, I was in the mindset of an interpreter, and I was getting really excited. And I started thinking about, like, just last semester, how I was, like, constantly I had a female in my class that was, like, 6 foot, and they were signing like this. And I'm like, take up space. Like, and then I would call in the guy, you know? And so I'm just replaying all of that, and I'm getting kind of excited. And, like, what we were talking about before, like, how competitive and toxic and non-communal the interpreting community is. That
was another thing that hit me, actually. Yeah. Talking about how these communities are not actually communities. Because I do have a lot of friends that are like into fitness culture, and hey, great for them. They really enjoy it. But like, I feel guilty for not being into that, and then I see people posting about my CrossFit family and stuff. And like, that's like, and again, sorry, not to pick on CrossFit. I can't do it. I'm not
competitive.
I'm not a competitive person. God did not give that to me. So, but like, I get a little jealous sometimes. I'm like, wow, they really have this tight knit group of all these. They have a family. Like, people say like, oh yeah, my Pilates family or my CrossFit family or whatever. And it's like, it's interesting to reframe that and be like, really, Mm-hmm. And hey, I'm not raining on anybody's parade. If somebody really does have a great community, like, that's awesome. But like, I always felt that I would never fit into that kind of community, and I always felt like there was something wrong with me. And you're right, I'm a Hufflepuff. I'm not competitive. I want everybody to win, and when I play board games with my kids, I try hard not to win.
Right.
Because I feel bad if I win.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I've never been attracted to any of these types of things. But I'm always like, is there something wrong with me? Because I don't want that.
For years, before I even got into intuitive eating, people would be like, come join CrossFit. I'm like, no, I'm not competitive. That's always my opinion, my impression of it. But you're right. I've also know that I often feel like an outsider, and I often don't feel included. And you're right. When I see these people doing things together, like 7 or 10 people I know, it's like, right, like you're being rejected, or you're just another way that I don't fit in, right?
Right.
Fit in, like, bold that. But I think we do that with interpreting too. There's cliques and my interpreting family and my,
I wish I need to find that. I mean, like, you're my interpreting family, and that's
likewise
about it.
But when we have like, and I'm not saying this critically, but they have like 15-year certified plus crews. Like, I'm always apprehensive to join that because it's like I always feel like an outsider, and like, why are you making elite upon the elite and like an us and then them? Go ahead.
So yeah, it's so interesting. Wow, everything's interconnected. When they were talking in the podcast about like being prescriptive and being like, well, this worked for me, therefore you must do what I do and you will obtain the same results. And it's like, just because you've been interpreting for 15 years doesn't mean you fit into this cookie cutter of what a 15-year veteran interpreter looks like. And everyone else's, it's all based on their experience, all this intersectionality.
Yeah.
And it, like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with like Facebook groups where people have been interpreting for 15 years, but you're right.
It's deeper.
Like,
it's deeper.
You're expected to be a certain way, and if you're not that way, somehow you're an outsider. It doesn't take into account individual experience or all of this.
No.
It's just putting one label, one commonality. Like, oh, we have all been interpreting for 15 years. Like, congratulations, we've all been potty trained for 15 years. Like, that doesn't mean we're all the same,
right?
Like,
right. Taylor's been potty trained a whole year, and he's still peeing on the floor. So, I mean...
so has my dog, Like...
Yes, there's so much I want to say, and I know we're wrapping up, but I do want to say I also had a moment in the recording where I had a meltdown because I know I have seen a deaf professional PhD professor talk about things and ideas being prescriptive, and I couldn't recall how they signed it. And so
I wanted to feed you.
Oh, you should have, because I could see them, and it was like grayed out, and I'm like,
their hand was like blurry.
Help me!
What are they doing up there?
Next time we're gonna like
descriptive, not prescriptive.
Thank you.
I got you.
Maybe we need to do this again.
We can do it again.
No, let's move forward. Descriptive, not prescriptive.
Ah! You got it now. You'll never forget. And mosquito.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for having this wonderful conversation with me. We will pick it up next time, whenever that will be.
And we'll be different.
We'll be different.
We'll be Chelsea and Lori. Different.
Okay, that's it. Bye.